Donald Trump returned to the White House with the intention of making the country great again. Beyond being a mere play on words, his objective also includes territorial expansion. Trump has insisted on his proposal to buy Greenland, has argued for retaking the Panama Canal, has hinted at making Canada a state of the Union. But this last one is believed by most to be him just trolling. All of this rhetoric has not gone unnoticed in Puerto Rico. Many Puerto Ricans have then raised the question, what about us? A large segment of the population of Puerto Rico, something that approaches 50% of it, have long sought to make the island a state. This, however, depends on Congress at the end of the day, and for reasons that range from indecision on the part of Puerto Ricans to political expediency on the part of U.S. congressmen, the subject has long been ignored. In the last election held in Puerto Rico, the pro-statehood party gained an overwhelming majority of seats in the local Congress, as well as the governorship, and they are determined to break the stalemate. In January this year, with 20 votes in favor, 6 against, and 1 abstention, Puerto Rico's Senate passed a request urging the U.S. President and Congress to respond diligently to finally end the island's territorial status after 127 years. Armed with the results of the last plebiscite held in November 2024, Governor Jenniffer Gonzalez went to Washington in order to campaign for statehood. Statehood has apparently won 4 plebiscites held on the subject since 2012. However, such votes were non-binding, and the results have been contested as not decisive enough to prompt a response from Congress. Proponents of statehood want to pull Puerto Rico out of the current political status, known locally as ELA, which has been blamed for economic stagnation and deemed inadequate to the realities of Puerto Rico in the 21st century. Under ELA, Puerto Rico receives a degree of autonomy while allowing Puerto Rico to retain their U.S. citizenship, plus allowing the island to receive federal funding for a number of programs. Over the last 30-odd years, a combination of developments hurt Puerto Rico's competitiveness. On the one hand, the island lost tax incentives for local industry, and on the other, the U.S. signed free trade agreements with other countries in the region that have cheaper labor, lower taxes, and lower energy costs. The proponents of statehood believe that as a state, Puerto Rico will be entitled to more funding from the federal government that would then allow it to boost its healthcare and education systems, its infrastructure, and its public safety. Aside from statehood and the current Commonwealth status, the alternative is independence, which has also been growing. This debate is more relevant than ever in Puerto Rico. Every expression from President Trump or from officials in his circle is carefully studied and debated by the island's media outlets. You can imagine the whirlwind when Elon Musk briefly mentioned Puerto Rico during his latest appearance at Joe Rogan's podcast. Before I proceed to quote Elon word by word, I have to explain the context. He was talking about how he thinks Democrat politicians want to allow massive numbers of people from other countries who will eventually become citizens and vote Democrat to the detriment of Americans, and then, once having secured an electoral majority, use it in order to admit Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico as states, which in his opinion would turn the country into a large one-party state, a blue state. This, he says, is the reason why he went all in for Trump in 2024. Quote, "The reason I went so hardcore for Trump was because to me, this was a fork in the road. Like a very obvious fork in the road. If they had another 4 years, they would legalize enough illegals in the swing states to make the swing states not swing states. They would just be blue states. Then they would win the presidency. They'd win the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They would then make D.C. into a state, maybe Puerto Rico, get 4 extra senators, pack the Supreme Court. So then you'll have the House, the Judiciary, the Senate, and the presidency all blue, and then they will keep importing more illegals to cement that outcome. Basically, what happened in California." Musk, who is one of Trump's most trusted appointees, echoes what's been expressed by other Republicans in the past, fearing that admitting Puerto Rico would just mean giving the Democrats 2 more Senate seats and more power in the House. As I said before, opposition to statehood is not limited to factions in the mainland. The Puerto Rican newspaper El Nuevo Dia reported that amid the pro-statehood summit in Congress, resident Commissioner Pablo Jose Hernandez stated in the House chamber that he was elected to pursue economic development initiatives for Puerto Rico. Hernandez insisted that if the blank and spoiled ballots in the plebiscite on November 5th are added together, 51% of Puerto Ricans refused to vote for statehood. Hernandez stated the following after the conclusion of Monday's session of the House of Representatives, quote, "That day, the people of Puerto Rico elected me with a clear mandate to focus on economic development and reconstruction, not on political status. The government of Puerto Rico can dedicate its time to whatever it wants. I cannot dedicate it, and I will not dedicate it to status. I prefer to talk about the status of our electric grid and all the steps we must take to fix it. I prefer to talk about an agenda that unites Puerto Ricans, Democrats, and Republicans. Mr. President, unity, not division, is the way forward." The truth is that if handled well, Puerto Rico could potentially benefit from Trump's tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China in a few ways, depending on how businesses and investors react to the trade barriers. As U.S. companies face higher costs importing goods from China, Mexico, or Canada, they may look for alternative locations within U.S. jurisdiction. Puerto Rico already has a strong pharmaceutical and medical device manufacturing sector. If tariffs make raw materials or products from China more expensive, companies may expand production on the island to avoid those costs. But Puerto Rico's high electricity costs and hurricane recovery issues still limit its competitiveness. Hence, addressing these problems is a must. This is what Commissioner Hernandez meant when he talked about fixing the island's power grid. Challenges to statehood aren't limited to D.C. In the context of the Senate vote, held in Puerto Rico in January, Senator Ada Alvarez Conde of the Popular Democratic Party, PPD, commented on Trump's lack of interest in the island, emphasizing that his first mention was about Canada potentially becoming a state, not Puerto Rico. She stated, "That's the truth, and it's painful for those who support statehood and aspire to it." Despite the hurdles in both Puerto Rico and Washington, not all lose hope. On the contrary, pro-statehood forces are energized. Its defenders celebrate the fact that Governor Jenniffer Gonzalez is putting the debate on status on Congress's table. If Congress agrees to hold a binding plebiscite, it is unlikely that the forces that oppose statehood will unite to defeat it. Let's not forget that the fact that previous votes on the subject were not binding had a direct impact on the way people cast their ballot. Please let me know in the comments if you think that Puerto Rico has a chance of becoming a state during the current Trump administration. If you support other status options, please let me know which is it and why. This is Latinometry. Subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any other interesting videos about Latin America and the world. Please like and share this video, and thanks for watching.